Previously on Invicta Media. A great add-on for the new and experienced player, Odyssey is both simultaneously the next small step and giant leap for Elite Dangerous, and it is well worth the $29.99 you will be dropping on it, or the $34.99 for the deluxe edition if you want to download the soundtrack, which is, as always, a phenomenal collection of music to cruise the galaxy to. And as is traditional with Frontier, there are plenty of planned updates in the works, but what Odyssey gives us already is pretty damn awesome, and it will make your spacefaring experience a truly astronomical one. 8 out of 10. Well, that aged well. My review of Elite Dangerous Odyssey had not been live for an hour before it received its first comment disagreeing with what I said. This in itself is nothing unusual. Reviews are subjective and people will disagree with what reviewers have to say. Then a comment came in telling people to ignore my review and read the Steam review page before buying the game and, quote, to avoid Odyssey. Harsh, but to an extent the point about getting all your information from one place is a fair one. I myself read multiple reviews of games I'm going to buy, including those on the Steam store. Multiple viewpoints will give you a fuller, broader picture of any situation. But the fact that my review had clearly missed something could not be ignored. So I, as a journalist, had a duty to see what I'd missed. Well, this is embarrassing. Before I go any further, this is not a retraction. I stand by my opinions based upon my personal experience in the game. I had fun, I liked the new mechanics and assets, even if they are repetitive and cookie-cutter in nature, and I experienced no frame drops at all. But it was clear that my experience was not the norm for a vast majority of users across all levels of systems, low tier to top-of-the-line gaming rigs. It was time to do some digging. At time of writing, the Steam page reads mostly negative, 31% of nearly 4,000 reviews, with the vast majority of complaints centred around poor frame rates and graphics, regardless of computer capabilities, buggy or flat unplayable missions, a poorly designed new UI, repetitive missions with low reward for time required, lacklustre combat mechanics, and overall shallow gameplay. Now, I must stress once again that I personally experienced none of these problems, even on launch day. But as someone who follows scientific method in decision making, I have to say the evidence is stark, and Odyssey has clearly, for much of its player base, suffered a terrible release and something has gone very wrong somewhere. Now, whenever I write a review, I deliberately shut myself off from the opinions of others. This is to make it impossible for me to be influenced by the thoughts of others, allowing me to go into a game with a clear head and a blank slate. That way I can give you my honest and uncoloured view of any given product. Now at this point it is only fair for me to point out two things. One, I am a massive Elite Dangerous fan and have been for many years, even through the mess that was Horizon's launch. And we do receive the games for free, though I will directly address one comment. As head of YouTube here at Invicta Media, I can absolutely 100% promise you we will never do paid reviews. All our reviews are honest and our opinions. We will never ever accept money from developers to do a good review. That all being said, my approach usually works, but I have to hold my hands up and say that while knowing about the shitstorm that had erupted in the days following Odyssey's release would have had no bearing on my physical experience, my lack of knowledge of other players' experience has made my review stand out like a turd in the middle of a white carpet. I could have directly addressed concerns within my review, but I was not able to do so, and that's on me. Also, I would have been aware of the specific issue regarding the game's earlier than expected release and the ending of Frontier's financial year in June, demonstrating the power of shareholders in game development cycles, which is utterly reprehensible and sadly prevalent throughout the gaming industry, and which we shall cover in depth in a later video. Like I said, none of this would have physically affected the game's performance on my PC, but context is key. And the overall context of Odyssey's release shows that my experience was clearly in the minority. I have since seen footage on other YouTube channels which shows the discrepancies in their experience between Horizons and Odyssey, and evidence like that is impossible to ignore. Poor optimization in the modern era is a pretty much unforgivable sin, and Frontier should have held the game back if there was even the slightest chance that it was going to have the issues that many users have had. When you are asking your extremely dedicated fan base to pay £30 to £35, your product should be sound and fit for purpose, and my personal experience notwithstanding, Odyssey clearly was not that for many players. The server lag issues are another failing on Frontier's part. Online games suffers launch day bugs is hardly a new complaint. Assassin's Creed Unity, Fallout 76, No Man's Sky, Anthem, the list goes on. But that is an example of what is known in legal terms as the bastard defence. You can't have a go at us for being bad because we're always bad. Well, no, that doesn't hold up. Frontier had the chance, same as every other MMO developer, to be the studio to break the mould, to be the first developers who released their game right, with servers that were equipped to handle the demands that were inevitably going to be placed upon them, and they didn't. Players have reported being kicked from missions unexpectedly, not being able to see their friends in-game, a lack of true co-op content, specifically not receiving any of the awards for helping a friend complete a mission, which worked fine in previous iterations, and just general shoddy implementation, which for a paid product is at best poor and at worst deliberately misleading, as we were promised full functionality at launch. It is worth pointing out at this moment that actually on the Steam page one of the user-defined tags for Odyssey is Early Access, which is a pretty damning indictment of how the game has been received. It should also be noted here that Frontier did, to their credit, front up and say prior to the release that Odyssey and Horizons will not be currently fully compatible, at least not until the console release in the autumn of this year. But again, I cannot understand why the game was released with that caveat. I'm not saying it's easy to make it happen, but the fanbase would much rather have waited until all the elements were in place, solidly put together, and it worked. This is another massive failing on Frontier's part, and something that could, with a bit of time and effort, have been addressed long before release. As for the combat, I said in my review, it was clunky, and it is. It is basic level FPS at most. According to third-hand reports that I have read, people have complained about being mobbed by NPCs who are apparently massively overpowered in-game. People have also reported huge frame rate drops, and that is, again, unforgivable and poor optimization from a studio that frankly should know better. If you can make a 1-to-1 scale model of the galaxy and make it run smoothly from the moment of release, you should still be able to do that now, even on the ground. If you cannot handle that many objects being rendered at once, then that is on you, Frontier. I've also heard reports that things are rendering in the wrong order. One YouTube review that I have subsequently viewed after releasing my own stated that people were seeing the interiors of buildings render before the exterior, and that is just bad. That's bad game design. The new planetary tech has come in for some harsh criticism as well, and while during my review playthrough I didn't notice anything specific, during the footage gathering for this video I did have a few issues here. I landed on an icy planet in the Arapa system, and I went for a walk around. I noticed a few small texture glitches which looked poor, but nothing too damning, and then I entered the Valley of the Floating Rocks, which while on one level is hilarious, it's very poor considering how well the planets worked in Horizons. This, I've got to be honest, is indefensible. There's not much more I can say about it other than that. It's really, really very bad considering the amount of tech they've had in this game for a number of years that has worked flawlessly. And while this isn't necessarily game breaking, it is certainly immersion breaking, and when you're a space sim player, and particularly when you're an explorer like me, this is the kind of thing that really interests you, and it looks shoddy. It's unprofessional at best and diabolical and lazy at worst. As for the UI, I personally think that it's fine. Not great and certainly not immediately intuitive, but it is by no means as diabolical as some people are making it out to be. That being said, it is a big and ultimately unnecessary change that, coupled with the rest of Odyssey's issues that people are experiencing, it's just the cherry of shit on top of a shit-filled cake. Frontier's CEO, David Braben, has come out and released statements to address the issues that the fanbase have raised, containing the usual platitudes of, we take these issues very seriously and we apologise to our fanbase, and a number of hotfixes have been released to fix various issues, but it does honestly seem like too little, too late. Many of the issues were avoidable, and that I think is the biggest crime that Frontier have committed here. They didn't have to release the game like this. Having a launch day release that has bugs is one thing. Having a launch day release that has massively avoidable and in some places game-breaking bugs is unforgivable. These could all have been sorted long before release, and you should not have released the game until these issues were non-existent. The decision to go straight from alpha to a full release with no beta, and the coincidence of the release date and Frontier's financial year ending in June, certainly points to the fact that yet another gaming studio has decided to put money ahead of product quality, and that is a trend far too prevalent in the industry, and one that I believed was below Frontier. Clearly I was wrong. As I've said, I stand by my review. I had a lot of fun with Odyssey and experienced no issues at all. But I am not the entire fanbase, a vast majority of which feel utterly let down by their experience. Based on that, my message to Frontier is this: be better. Learn from this. You cannot undo the damage that this release has caused to so many of your dedicated fans, but by God, you have to fix it. And I know that Frontier are releasing a roadmap, and some people have speculated already that this roadmap is going to take at least 6 to 12 months to implement. But Frontier, no, you cannot spend that long on it. You've got to get this fixed, and you've got to get it fixed quickly. You didn't put the time in before you released it, so you're going to have to put the time in now. Elite Dangerous is a great, in-depth space simulation, and Odyssey is a great step forward when it works. But it clearly does not work well enough across the board, and unless you find some way of making it better for a large majority of your customers, you, like them, could soon find yourself lost in the inky black void. You've been warned, FDev. You've been warned. I've been Chris for Invicta Magazine, and thank you for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments, and if you enjoyed it, please do give this video a like and a share. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and keep up with all our latest content. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, plus we stream regularly on Twitch, and you can find all those links in the description below along with our website. See you next time. Goodbye for now.